Let's begin. Welcome everybody to the NIAS webinar series, and my name is Patrick Pheasant. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at NIAS Australia, and we're very happy to be presenting for you today a guest speaker on behalf of IELTS. Now, you all must know IELTS, but for NIAS, IELTS is a very important partner. We work closely with IELTS. They support our annual conference every year in May in Sydney, and also most recently the IELTS teacher training program was quality assured and endorsed by NIAS Australia. So they're a very important partner for us, and we're very happy to be having them present today. I won't introduce the speaker. I will leave that to Stephanie to do. So I'll just hand over to Stephanie, and please everyone enjoy the webinar. Thanks for attending.
Thanks, Patrick. It's a pleasure to be here. So hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's NIAS webinar. So we are going to talk about how you can use IELTS to advance your teaching career. So my name is Stephanie Bethencourt, and I'm the Stakeholder Engagement Officer for IELTS at IDP Education, and my colleague will be joining me from Malaysia, Meena Patel. She is the Assessment Research Manager at the British Council. So without further ado, over to you, Meena.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And I'd like to thank both Patrick and Cameron and NIAS generally for inviting us to present. It's a complete pleasure to be here and a privilege to be presenting to all of you. And I can't see out there in the ether. Okay, I am going to start straight away. So the topic of today's webinar is using IELTS to advance your teaching career. For some reason my slides won't move on. Can I stop share and start again, Cameron?
Yep, just go start again with the share. Make sure get that to work.
Sorry about that, everyone. They were working just a minute ago. Let me do that again. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so in terms of IELTS for teachers, teaching is a passion of mine. I used to teach IELTS and be an IELTS examiner many years ago. I love teaching, and I had a wonderful time with my students. And so I'm still interested in supporting teachers in any way I can with the incredible jobs that they do in the classroom. The main aims of this webinar today are to share and raise awareness of the resources and opportunities that we at IELTS have for teachers in helping them through their career pathway, so to speak. So we believe that teaching and learning and assessment are part of one integrated system that works together to help students through their educational journeys. So in terms of what the IELTS partners offer, I think there are several things there. Firstly, we offer resources and teaching ideas, things that you can take straight into the classroom and use with your students. And they help to build confidence, they help to grow your repertoire of teaching resources, and they help you basically to get that footing into the IELTS classroom. And then moving on from there, another very important thing as a teacher that I value and I know that is of benefit to many teachers is development through sharing and exchange. I know it doesn't sound like rocket science, but sometimes, and definitely in my experience throughout my career sometimes, you get so drawn into your timetable, your classes, even a fleeting moment in the staff room to share ideas with teachers becomes a luxury. And what we like to do through our various awards and scholarships is to provide teachers opportunities to go to events, to meet other teachers from other contexts or similar contexts even, to share ideas, exchange their views, learn new things, and importantly, to showcase the wonderful work that they are doing as well. Because I think that's really important, to share what you are doing with other people, so that it's not just you doing the learning, you know, it's a reciprocal process of mutual benefit. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. And I think regardless of whether your passion is teaching IELTS or any kind of teaching, if you're interested in a certain topic, one of the most beneficial ways of development is further education. So furthering your knowledge and expertise through study, whether that study is doing another diploma, doing a master's degree, even doing a PhD, but really finding your little niche and exploring that in a more detailed way. So these are the kind of things that I will be talking about in the next hour or so. So more specifically, the resources and opportunities I'll be talking about are teaching tips, blog for teachers, the Morgan Terry Scholarship, the Caroline Clapham Masters Award, and Stephanie at the end will be talking about additional teaching resources. Now, just for my benefit, so I have a gauge of what you know and how aware you are of these resources. We're going to do a little poll that should appear on the screen very soon, where you can let me know, there it is, where you can let me know if you've heard of any of these resources before. So if I can just trouble you to do this poll for me, that would be great. Okay, so people have heard of the IELTS Teacher Training Program, great. Progress Check, fantastic. Some have heard of the Caroline Clapham, fantastic. Oh, nobody's heard of the Morgan Terry, okay, I'll talk to you about that. The blog, yes, and the teaching tips, yes, fantastic. Thank you, that's been really helpful. And I know that I'm working with quite a knowledgeable audience here. Steph's just sent me a message to say that you might not be able to hear me. Can you all hear me? Is listening to me a problem? Sound okay?
I meant the sound from the presentation, because I know you've got a few videos later on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should we just go to it and see if that works? Okay. Just carry on until we get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so brilliant. Okay, so first thing I want to talk to you about teaching tips. Most of you know about the teaching tips, so I won't talk to you about the first ones. We are just about to launch our second teaching tips. For those of you who don't know about them, the teaching tips were conceived at the IATEFL conference in 2015. IATEFL is the International Association for Teachers of English as a Foreign Language. The association hosts an annual conference in the UK in a different city every year, and it attracts thousands and thousands of teachers, trainers, and researchers from all over the world. It really is quite an event. So at the conference in 2015, we facilitated a workshop called Swap Shop Teaching Tips for IELTS. And we ran the session like a speed dating event. But the dates had 3 people. It had the 2 people talking to each other and an observer who was the note taker. At the end of 45 minutes and lots of dating, we came up with some magnificent ideas, which some of you will be familiar with through the teaching tips. So because they've been so popular, we took some more of those teaching tips and we created teaching tips 2. The idea with the teaching tips is not to focus so much on the product, but on the process. They're not so much about test-taking strategies for potential IELTS candidates. What they are, though, are little activities, warmers, fillers, that focus on the processes, helping students learn the techniques and the methodology that will then stand them in good stead throughout their educational journeys. So if you are familiar with them, you'll know that they're little postcards. You can cut them up and you can just run with them into the classroom. They're not full-blown lesson plans, though they do come with videos. They do come with videos, and in the videos, the purpose of the videos is to explain the rationale behind that particular teaching tip, and to talk about the different variations of them, how you can extend them for different level learners exactly. So these snippets, and they really are just snippets, are from teaching tips 2. And just a little bit of context before I go into them. So you'll see me there in the left-hand corner with my colleague Tony Clark from Cambridge, and we created the second teaching tips together. And in an ideal world, we would have been sat in a little studio in Cambridge recording these, like the first ones were done. But we were in lockdown, beginning of the pandemic. This was March 2019. So Tony was in his study in Cambridge, and I was in my dining room in Loughborough, and we started making these videos. So let's listen to what Tony has to say.
Support the teaching of IELTS. This is in response to the positive feedback we received last time round. We hope that these tips are relevant to your context, class and experience. We really hope these are a springboard, so we don't intend you to take them exactly as they are now, but you can bend them and shape them and make them into something that applies to your context. We've chosen these because we think they'll help you give your students what they need to learn on their IELTS and English journey.
Okay, so for me, the most important thing Tony said there is that the teaching tips are a springboard for you to then take into your context and make them into whatever activity type might be useful for you. So, as I said, the videos give you a bit more information and they provide a couple of examples. So one of the teaching tips is listening, what did I miss? And in that teaching tip, what we aim to do is to help students with improving their listening techniques while doing a listening test. So here's just an example from one of the activities.
You can see a table with different topics along the top and different areas or possibly reasons why students might have made some mistakes. So did they, for example, did they get the answer wrong because they made a spelling mistake? Did they get the answer wrong because they missed out a word? Did they get the answer wrong because they lost their place in the recording? Did they get the answer wrong just because they didn't understand? What was the reason? I mean, the ones on the slide are just examples. You can obviously add your own. So then the students go through their answers and they tick why they think they got that wrong. And very soon they'll have a little visual of kind of areas that they need to focus on. And if you do it for every practice listening that the students do, you may begin to see a pattern.
Okay, so there, just giving you an example of how we can help students identify the mistakes they are making in listening. And again, this is really an example. As I said, these categories on the left-hand side, incorrect spelling, etc., you can change them to whatever you want, and you fill in the topics as you go along. So that's what the videos and the teaching ideas are for. They're really a springboard for you then to take into the classroom. Now, this last video, so Tony and I started in March 2019. This last video was July in the same year when I'd moved back to Malaysia finally, got out of lockdown, come back to Malaysia. And this was a home video that I made with my daughter just to give Tony an idea of how we could make the videos more practical. And we've ended up using it. So I'm just going to show you a little snippet of that. Hi everyone. So with the Pelmanism, Tony and I thought it might be a good idea if we give you a bit of a practical example of exactly what we mean when we talk about Pelmanism, but also the different variations and how it can help your students of all levels. So if you carry on watching that video, I literally do take you through a whole activity, how to make the Pelmanism cards, how you can adjust the activity for different levels and for different topics within IELTS, and also for the different papers as well. So you can use it for listening, you can use it for speaking, you can use it for writing, you can also use it for reading. So that is the kind of information and detail that the videos provide. So that's teaching tips.
Due
You
to
can see a
popular
table
demand, we've developed
with different
a second
topics
set
along the
of
top.
Hi
teaching
everyone.
tips.
There we go. Blog for teachers. I really like the blogs for teachers. They're a relatively new resource. But what they are is they take the teaching tips ideas a little bit further. So whereas the teaching tips ideas are a springboard, the blogs provide you with sometimes whole lesson plans as well, and a lot more details than the teaching tips. The topics that the blogs are focused on are relevant and practical, and they're interesting. But one thing I like about them, and I'll show an example, is, and these are two examples, is that what they do is they introduce the topic with a little bit of theory, just a little bit of rationale as to why flipped learning might be important, and why it might be suitable for your students in your context, before telling you how to use it or suggesting how to use it. So I love the fact that it's theory combined with practice, because sometimes as teachers, we forget why we're doing things. We're on autopilot and we do run from lesson to lesson. And sometimes it's nice to have a little refresher. So these blogs for me are a very nice refresher. There's ideas here for new teachers or teachers who are new to IELTS, but there's also things in the blogs for teachers who are experienced. And there are ideas here that you might already be using in class, but maybe you haven't thought about using them from this perspective or looking at them from this perspective. So talking about student feedback, we all know how important student feedback is. So, but why does it matter? What are the different ways that you can elicit student feedback? Not only to develop your own teaching, but to develop your own teaching so it feeds back into the learning as well. Teaching learners how to paraphrase, that's so important, both in writing and in speaking. So looking at chunking, how does that help? What is it? Why do we use it? What makes it a good method? But the nice thing about these blogs, they are very informative. They have a lot of information, but they are not too long. They don't take a long time to read. They don't take a long time to digest, and yet they end with practical tips, and that's why I really like them. And I just heard last week that the Teaching Tips 2 that's just about to be launched, some of those ideas will be turned into blogs as well. So I'm really happy about that. So watch this space. Okay, moving on. So Morgan Terry Memorial IATEFL Scholarship is the one that you said in the poll that you hadn't heard of at all. So let's talk about this one a bit. So the idea for this scholarship came from wanting to commemorate Morgan Terry, who was an educator who dedicated her life to improving teaching, but also dedicated an awful lot of time to IELTS and improving the teaching of IELTS as well. So we thought this scholarship would be a nice way to commemorate her. What we're looking for, this is an annual competition, and it's linked to the IATEFL conference that I mentioned before. And what we're looking for here is for teachers to share with us an activity or a learning resource that they've developed that could help prospective IELTS candidates prepare for the test. So it's got to be developed by yourselves. It's got to be tried and tested in your classroom. And you've got to tell us how it works. So you've got to explain the methodology. You've got to explain how it benefits your students. And you've got to describe how it can be used possibly by teachers in other contexts. So how would they transfer this idea and use it in their lessons, and how it might benefit other learners. So the submission is only 400 to 500 words, but it's one really nice way of sharing what you are doing in your context with other teachers. If you should win, the award is very, very generous, I think. So you have registration for the IATEFL conference. You get registration for the pre-IATEFL conference event that relates to testing, evaluation and assessment. and that's usually the day before the main conference. You get a year's IATEFL membership. So the benefits of the membership are free access to webinars that IETFL hosts quite regularly, especially now during the pandemic, and free access to the newsletters as well. You get your accommodation paid for during the conference, and of course travel costs to get to the conference, plus daily expenses. So I think that's a really nice package. But that for me is only one side of the award. I think that's all important and really relevant and useful. But let me just show you this slide. That's a lot of text, but I'll just give you a minute to look at that. I know you're probably still reading it, so but I will just say, and it's worth saying, that Sonia Zander in the middle photo with the big pink glasses, she's actually from Sydney. So it was lovely to have her come over to the UK and spend time at the conference with us. So I was saying that the award itself for me is one side of the benefit of this scholarship. The other side is exactly what all three winners are saying, and that's the experience of the conference itself. That's the experience of meeting new people, other practitioners from new contexts, of sharing, of watching experts present, and being able to showcase what you have done as well, and to raise your own profile, which I think is important when you're developing throughout your career, because that's very, very important. Alison Featherstone in Liverpool, she went on to come to 2 more IATEFLs on her own steam, and she now writes, and she's become a trainer. And so, you know, again, a springboard to opportunities. But that's the power for me of events like conferences like these. So usually we will announce the scholarship open in the springtime, and it closes, I think, in September, and the conference is usually March or April time, and that's usually, things might change in the pandemic, but that's how it works. So I think that's a really good opportunity if you're thinking of developing your career as a teacher. The Caroline Clapham Masters Award. So for those teachers who do find a niche, a part of their teaching that they're particularly interested in, and they go on to do a master's, we have this award for those teachers who are interested in language testing or assessment. So we're looking for master's level dissertations and nothing else. The award doesn't expect teachers to contribute anything else. You have to do a dissertation as part of your master's, and all we require is that you submit that dissertation with the support of your academic supervisor. That's very important. We won't accept our applications without them. And the award includes £1,000 prize money, which is absolutely great, and a fully sponsored trip to a language testing conference to receive a certificate. So the difference here is, now that you've come to master's level and you're focusing on testing and assessment, the kind of event that we would sponsor you to is about testing and assessment. So we've gone into a slightly more niche area here, whereas IATEFL is for English language teachers, and it's a little bit more general. Assessment is a strand of the conference, but it's generally for all teachers. And the conference here that we generally present the certificate at is the Language Testing Research Colloquium. And that's a global conference, and it's in a different country every year. Of your own development as a professional, there are opportunities for you in IELTS, and they go from improving as a teaching, improving your skills, your expertise, training, studying, presenting at conferences. So at the IATEFL conference, we do offer the opportunity of winners to present their work as well. And that's really, really important because it helps to build confidence, and it's motivating in order to try other new things. So again, with the Caroline Clapham Award, we look forward to your applications. One thing that I should have said with the Morgan Terry Scholarship Award, sorry, the Teaching Tips ideas, is that if you would like to share your teaching tips with us, if you would like us to publish your ideas as part of the teaching tips, you can write to us. We welcome ideas all the time. We really can't get enough ideas. So that, if you'd like to do that, that would be great. So I'm going to stop there just for a moment, and I'm going to hand over to Stephanie.
Well, thanks very much, Mina. That was very interesting. I hope you all took something away with you there. There's lots of things for you to think about after this. So there are a few more training and support tools that I'd like to talk to you about now. Some of them you may have heard of, and others will be entirely new to you. So firstly, we have got the IELTS Progress Check, which is something that you may already be familiar with. It's been available for a good few years now. And this is basically an online practice test. It is marked by IELTS experts, and it provides an indicative band score for each skill, as well as an indicative overall band skill. And those that complete this also receive detailed feedback with their results. And this, I suppose, is more useful as a classroom tool, and many teachers use it that way. And their students do this practice test to give them a better idea of their English language level. And also from the feedback and from their results, teachers can see where their students need to improve to achieve the IELTS scores that the students want as their outcome. Now, this is a paid for service. It's about, I think, $75 in Australia. And there is an offer of bulk purchase for schools if that is something that you think is of interest to you. Next slide. So the IELTS teacher training program. So you all indicated that a lot of you knew about this, which is great. This, I think, is a brilliant free training tool for IELTS prep teachers. I know that my colleague who put it all together, she put so much effort into it and she worked so hard on it, and it's just got so much feedback, and she's so enthusiastic about it. So much great feedback. It's brilliant. Anyway, as Patrick said at the beginning, this product has been quality endorsed by NIAS, and you can also receive up to 40 CPT points with English Australia on completion of both courses. So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically 2 online courses, one about speaking and the other on writing. And it looks in depth at the assessment criteria, what they actually mean, and how to teach these skills, how that kind of translates to the classroom. And each course takes about 10 hours to complete. There are assessments along the way to ensure that you understand everything, and you have to pass them before continuing, and these can be taken multiple times. And then once you've finished, you'll receive a certificate of completion. Now, I think there's a deadline of about 3 months or so to complete the courses, but if you don't make it within that time, you can just get back in contact with us and we'll reinstate that your access for you. Now, we've had a brilliant response for these courses. We've had over 13,000 teachers who have signed up to do them. And in fact, it's probably more since we put this presentation together. But you can see some of the feedback from the teachers on the slide who find the courses really, really valuable. I've just got a couple of others as well for you. One is someone from Germany. Sorry, back a minute. That's all right. So someone from Germany, they say, it puts the whole IELTS teaching for me into perspective. I found a new insight into what to focus on and what approach to take, and I will for sure apply it to my classes. So it just brings out different thoughts, different ideas, kind of amalgamates everything you've learnt and helps you come up with different ways of teaching. A teacher from the USA said, I find it easy to evaluate English students who are either very low or very high on the band scores. However, I feel most people I speak with fall in a more intermediate range. While it's still more difficult due to the band descriptors being very similar at levels 5, 6, and 7, I do feel it has helped me provide clarity in my understanding of both the positive and negative features that affect a band score. So if you find that this is your case as well, then I would certainly encourage you to have a look at these courses. So the participation is global, and we have the largest proportion of teachers signed up their form from Iran. We also have a large proportion from Australia, Saudi Arabia, and India, though I think in total there are about 25 countries involved and participate. So it's a brilliant tool that is used globally. And these courses were actually put together on the back of research by Phil Chappell and his colleagues at Macquarie University. And his research was supported by the annual IELTS research grant program as well. So I really encourage you to take a look at them if you haven't already, and have a bit of a play with them. Next slide now, if that's all right, Nina. Thank you. So I've got some additional support tools here. So you're probably all very familiar with the fact that IELTS is owned by 3 different organisations: IDP, the British Council, and Cambridge. And each partner has developed its own set of training tools for teachers. So I've covered a lot of the IDP stuff, and these are the ones from the British Council. So their additional support tools include an IELTS Facebook page and a newsletter, providing useful hints, tips, and updates for teachers. And there are some great Teach IELTS videos that look at the test in a very user-friendly way. They've also got some lesson plans you can download to add to your armoury and bolster your classroom activities as well. So some really good stuff there. They also organise weekly webinars. I think it's every Wednesday at about midday UK time. And that looks at different aspects of the test. You're more than welcome to sign up, though it's probably not a particularly pleasant time. So if you're to be awake in the middle of the night, then feel free. So all these support tools are free. And for example, the webinar, you can find the details of that on the bottom right-hand web address there. Next page, please, Mina. Thank you. So, and these are some additional support tools that Cambridge have put together. Now, I'm just going to highlight a few of them here. So we have the Teaching IELTS blog. So this is where teachers, trainers, and authors share their tips and insights for learner successes. You've also got their YouTube playlist, which covers IELTS test and classroom ideas. And finally, also the Practice Makes Perfect website. And this is really good for those of you that use the Cambridge Authentic Practice Test series books. So I think they're called IELTS 12, IELTS 13, those ones there. And this provides some free resources such as lesson plans and teaching tips that will help you get more out of those books. So that's really good. And then the only other one, well, obviously we've got the We Love IELTS website, so great for blogs, mini lessons, that kind of thing. And Mindset for IELTS is the latest prep course from Cambridge. And then finally, the How to Teach IELTS 20-hour course with certification. So this one is far more in depth, and this is a paid for product, all the others are free. So it's £100, which is about 185 Australian dollars for 18 months worth of access on that. So that gives you a lot of information, a lot of different tools, depending what you like and how you like to go about these things. We will be sharing all these links with you afterwards, so you don't have to madly write them down as we go through. But that's the end of mine, Mina. Next slide. Oh, there we are. So that's great. That really covers a lot of details about all the support tools we have to support you throughout your whole teaching career and to help you advance, to help you find new ideas, new inspiration as you teach. Now we have got a couple of questions I noticed in the Q&A, Mina. Let me see. How long does the dissertation need to be for the Caroline Clapham Masters Award? And could it be submitted from Delta Module 3? Does it need to be based on language assessment? Do you know?
It doesn't. Sorry, go on. I was just going to say, yes, it does need to be based on an aspect of language assessment. It does not have to be based on IELTS, though. It could be based on Delta Module 3, but it cannot be your Delta Module 3 because you have to be doing a master's in order to participate. And in terms of master's level dissertation, what the words are, I really don't know. I can quickly find out, though. I'm not sure what the word length is, but I think with that one, you'll also find that it differs institution to institution. But yes, definitely use material from Delta Module 3. It can't be just that, though. And it doesn't have to be on IELTS, but it does have to be on an aspect of language assessment and testing.
Yes. And the other question here is, how can I become an IELTS examiner? So that is obviously part of a progression within your career. And in fact, I mean, if you go on to the next slide, you can see the process of if it works for you, yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you talk and I'll kind of stop sharing and do it again and see what happens.
So Mina will show the whole process of becoming an examiner, and it is possible, though I must say that in Australia currently, we have a very high demand for examiners, and that they're not accepting anymore at the moment, but it is something to think about, maybe if you move to another country, or if demand opens up again. So here's the process as such. So the best way to become an IELTS examiner is to contact your local test centre. So the speaking examiners are all managed through the local test centre, and the writing examiners are managed globally, and they'll be able to put your local test centre will be able to put you in touch with the right people, and will be able to give you more information about exactly what you need to do. On the IELTS.org website as well, there is a page at the top. In Thailand, someone says, yes, it's possible. I would certainly reach out to your local test centre. I know that I inquired from our examiner standards manager about Australia, because I knew most of you would come from Australia. So I know Australia is kind of full to bursting with examiners at the moment, but certainly ask if you are based in other countries. On the IELTS.org website, under the IELTS for Teachers tab, I think it is, there is information about the education requirements and the training requirements that you need to become an IELTS examiner. So if you like, I'll send the link to Cameron afterwards. Maybe that'd be easiest, and then I can share that with you all, or he can share that with you all afterwards.
Yeah, as part of the post webinar, we'll look to send a bunch of links and also information on if there is someone who's looking to get a certificate as well. But yes, certainly of all these links, including other information for you guys. So if you do have any questions, we'll also give you Stephanie and IELTS's contact, and they can answer any other questions as well.
Yeah. Sorry, there is, I don't know if you can see this one, Mina, there is another question that's come in. Oh, there's a couple more actually.
Go for it. I can't see them, sorry.
This is quite a long one, so bear with me while I read it. As a to-be graduating student, I am also qualified to teach ESL, as I have also attained my CELTA. What is your advice for a young 24-year-old emerging teacher to do upon graduating? Do you suggest gaining the skills by taking these courses? What other kind of training do you recommend taking? Thank you.
Do you know, that's a really good question. And as Stephanie was going through the 3 slides from IDP British Council in Cambridge, I was thinking, for emerging teachers, it is actually quite tricky because you have so many resources and it can be quite overwhelming. My actual advice is, do you know what? I'd try a couple of the courses. I really would. But one of the things that I like about the whole ethos and concept of the teaching tips is that you take something, you try it, but then you use that to develop your own. That's how you grow, I think, as a teacher. But you need to try these courses initially to see what's out there, to see different possibilities, how things can be done. And now, particularly in the pandemic, going on these courses is how you're going to meet other teachers as well. So I think you need the experience of these courses to bring back, try things in your classroom. And this may be an old-fashioned thing now, I don't actually think it is, but I think you need to find your identity as a teacher. What kind of teacher are you? And I think that is incredibly important. And then I think if you're passionate about teaching, you want to learn more, I really would do another qualification on it. In my career trajectory, I did a degree, and then I did my diploma. I know somebody's already mentioned that. But I was so interested in teaching and everything about it. I then went on to do my master's, but between the qualifications, I kept teaching experience, because I think you've got to keep all your learning rooted in the classroom. So that's what I would do. I would kind of dip into the courses. I would try things out. I'd find my own kind of style by developing my own materials for my context, my students. And then I'd go on to do other qualifications. I hope that answers your question, but that's what I would do.
Thank you, Mina.
Sorry, can I just say one more thing? I was just going to say, one of the best ways to learn, and I've had this experience today, and because I don't use Zoom very often, is to teach, is to do. So if you are really passionate and you do want to progress your teaching career, then start presenting and sharing that way. That is a really, really useful and beneficial way of learning. Sorry, Steph.
No, I was going to say that there's if that hasn't answered his question fully, it's certainly given food for thought, because there's a lot to think about there. I think we've come to the end of our questions. If there is anything else that anyone wants to ask, do put it in the Q&A box. Otherwise, thank you all very much for attending. Thank you, Cameron, for managing us. Yes, something else, of course.
Just one thing. I just wanted to say sorry for all the technical hitches. Honestly, I did practice, but the best laid plans. But thank you, everyone, for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable this afternoon. Thanks again. And again, feel free to get back in contact with any of us if you want information about what we've discussed. Nias and Cameron, they will share all the links with you. So have a good rummage around, and then yeah, get back in contact if necessary. Thanks very much.
Thank you.